So they'll be calling you a radical, nuclear energy Waterloo. Mile walkers versus all we hear is Radio Gaga shit talkers. So, as the activist, Kevin Blanche, the activist that wins. So, I've been thinking about the so-called peace movement since Party Like It's 1999. I'm the anti-nuclear energy activist. Always have been. You think I have wins? Oh, I win. Blue Castle. Senate offer without Kevin Blanche. Senate offering never shuts down. Never. Never. And so many. I have so many wins. And I mean, we have the nuclear energy. Oh, we got them on their knees. They're on their knees. They've made a counteroffensive with the propaganda machine like I've never seen in my life. And I've been at this my whole life. And I'm not young. So their counteroffensive is on Balco, right? And that's all it is propaganda and pork. The Obama administration, or excuse me, the Biden administration turned out to be a giant failure. It's just an extension of the Trump administration, which is an extension of the Obama Dumber administration, extension of the Bush administration. It's a military industrialized war complex. So the peace movement is party like 1999. Think about the peace movement. Anybody that calls them peace acts, I'm an anti-nuclear energy. I'm the activist. You think about this era, 23 years, that's the biggest losses in human history. If you call yourself and you're writing books and you promote all the alternative media is way worse than mainstream media. And that's saying a lot. I mean, it's pathetic. So I've been thinking, I invented the Million Mass March, me and John Anthony Fairhurst, giant movement. If you're being promoted, you got millions of views or even hundreds of thousands of views on so-called YouTube, Facebook, whatever. You think you're effective? Yeah, for them. I mean, the false resistance, they've been parading them out for years. The same old players, in the last 23 years as far as the peace movement. Howdy. Good. Friend of my dad's. So, I've had like 3 people that call me Dwayne. That was my dad. So, they prey the same on their book writers, and they're always hawking their books. Now, I remember when I was young, the old man, Dr. Burroughs, he's really old right now. He's been telling me for years and years and years and years. Morning. Morning. He's been telling me for years and years and years. Government need to get them books done. He told me that 40 years ago. Working on it. Colette Spencer says in the Bay Area, she says, if Kevin Blanche wrote a book, it'd be 10 feet thick. And I remember a guy told me, young guy, when I was young, really young, he's, let me tell you something about the activist that wins. Literature does nothing but change around the edges and the fringes. Literature doesn't change anything. Nothing. Book writing is not the answer. It's fact. Like I said, it changes everything around the edges. It does nothing at the core. It's always stuck with me. I'm not a book writer. So I think about the so-called peace movement as far as peace activists. I think about it a lot. To call yourself a peace activist in the last 23 years? Whoa, lost every single battle. Lost them all. Then some. I always go back to him, Michelangelo. That's who I want to be remembered like. Oh, he won. And look what he stood up against. His own friends painting over his paintings in fear. He stood up to the most powerful beast in the world at the time. The church. Boy, whoa, same thing here. So, they're great artist activists. Let your art speak for itself, he would say. Art is nothing but a form of communication. Michelangelo, well, you're such a great sculptor. My wet nurse came from a family of Masons. I split my own rock. I'm organic as it gets. So I think about this. Think about the peace movement. So am I against every single war? No. There's at some point you have to fight the bully. So I'm watching different so-called peace activists popping up all over now. They have had shows on RT. If you had a show on RT, I knew that. When I started the Million Mass March, RT used to come follow us around and interviews. I used to tell John, how come they never interview the guy who started it? Because they know I'm an anti-imperialist. I'm an anti-nuclear. They knew, and they knew, and I knew better. I know Noam Chomsky personally, and I just remember talking to Noam about this at Helen Kellercott's symposium. And I remember talking to him about it and saying, why don't you talk about it? Now we're finding out he was meeting with Epstein at the same time. And, oh God, they're all out today. And so, talk about destroy your legacy. You're involved with Epstein after he becomes the convict, the registered. This is after. It's unbelievable who runs this show. The greatest abuse to human rights in human history is nuclear energy. I know what I'm doing. I'm at the top. I know what I'm doing. So I see all these people that used to have shows on RT, which is Russia. And I was always like, no, my antennas were up all those years. I was in, remember the 5th of November. Remember, I got a tip to stay in New York. That day McKill Lesson was beat to death in DuPont, right where I stay. I stay at DuPont Circle when I'm there. Part of the peace vigil, the real movement. I'm an anti-nuclear energy activist. I win. Why do you think they freaking squash me, go after people, fear me, run from me? It's lonely at the top. So these book writers and these peace activists, it's unbelievable. And they call themselves a peace activist, and they keep parading them out. They parade them out. You had a show on RT. Look, as far as these wars go, Vietnam, oh my God, I was such an anti-Vietnam. But think about that. I was just a little boy then. Those activists that fought Vietnam won. They won. Look, Dan Rather. Think what they did to him. The guy that broke the back of the military industrialized complex went into Vietnam. Walter put it up on. Cronkite. And he comes out and says George W. Bush is a draft dodger. So he gets fired for calling when George W. Bush was a draft dodger. Don't tell the truth. Any real activist gets so marginalized. So if you're being contemporized and you have a show on art, so think about the military industrialized complex. It's not that these are their best tools. So I see all kinds of people now that are promoting, justifying Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Oh, well, Ukraine is kind of like Alaska. What are you talking about? Ukraine has had its independence since the 80s. Unbelievable. That's like saying, we can go back to the Mexican-American War. We can go back to Teddy Roosevelt when he invaded Cuba. Folded him up nicely like a rabbit. Remember, he wanted to invade Canada. And take it away from the Queen. They've been fighting over this. So I want you to think about this. So at some point, you got to fight the bully, right? You got to fight the bully. You just got to do it. So what's Ukraine supposed to do? And everybody's going off on NATO. Okay, think about without NATO. Let's go back. My uncle, who raised me, Harold Blanche, look him up. His name's on the wall in D.C. So you think about it. Omaha Beach, D-Day, Battle of the Bulge, first group that got there of the U.S. after the Russians had got to Hitler's bunker. What happened to Europe? I don't think people have a clue. World War I, World War II. I mean, talk about blood in the streets. Talk about devastation, starvation. I mean, beyond horrific. Beyond horrific. People don't get it. They don't get it. So, Germany had no army anymore. France had no army anymore. None of them had any army. All they'd done is spent centuries just killing each other. So that was the deal. Over. Hasta la vista. Now, the UN was put in Austria. It was supposed to be in New York. Stalin doing that. God, talk about Stalin. The peace activists that were inside Russia, women, remember? They were women, getting rid of the czars. They're called the whites. Stalin took them out systematically, killed every one of them. Last one, he got Trotsky to the head. You ever heard Trotsky speak? Oh my God, you don't even have to understand English. It's like the women activists, anti-nuclear energy activists in India. You don't even have to understand a word they say. You can just, it'll go through the screen into you. These powerful, they know there's certain people they fear, like Kevin Blanche. What do you think on internet kettle squash all these peace activists? They prayed out and just sell book after book. And they're promoting, look, without NATO, think about it. What were they to do? You don't think Russia would have marched across Europe within seconds? It's the old British Empire versus the Russian Empire. It's like, I always go back to Winston Churchill, though I'm really not a fan of his. And so the United States has not become a military arm. It's disgusting. It's beware of the military industrialized complex. It's not a cliche. Look it up. That's a real speech. It's a real, read it. Eisenhower. So it's in it's in FDR's son's book. It's a great book. He was hanging around with his father and Churchill during the war. Remember, Churchill moved into the White House. Wasted every day. Make his gallon of wine. They're in the basement, having cigars, talking. He said, Winston, let me tell you, when this war is over, there'll be no monarchies. The imperialism era is over forever. I got to tell you, Winston, he says, you're flying right in the face of Mother England. He says, yeah, there's going to be no royals left. He says, when I was an 11-year-old boy, I went to London. I saw Queen Victoria. I hated the old witch. There's nothing more quintessentially American to be anti-imperialism, anti-monarchy, in the spirit of Samuel Adams, in the spirit of Abraham Lincoln, in the spirit of Paul Revere. First they come for the cross. Oh God, that's all she does is just scream. She walks around here and just screams the whole time she's in here.
Yes, she should have said, okay, Teresa, here's what's going on. Because you know what? I would have let $1 in that account and said, put it all in my savings.
Oh my God. So, anyway. So, Winston's trembling. He says, well, I know if I don't go along with you, Winston. Winston says, I don't know if I go along with you, Franklin. But if I don't, we're going to go down the same way our cousins did in Russia. What was Ukraine supposed to do? What was Ukraine supposed to do? He invades them. I was over there in 2015. This has been going on. What are they supposed to do? So they had to form, at post the war, they had to form some kind of alliance, which was the U.S. when they divided up the world. He ain't going to stop. These guys won't stop. So what were they supposed to do? What were they supposed to do? You don't think Russia would have marched, Stalin would have marched right across him? Stalin was not a communist. What he did, he systematically removed the peace activists one by one. I go back to all that great work I did with Feynman all those years. And Feynman was the best. Squashed down because they used to win. Putin's a czar. Putin's an imperialist. How long has he been in power? That's not a president. You look at how much money he has looted. What's happened to Russia? It's been turned into imperialism post. We go from Gorbachev and Reagan to Bush and Putin to Obama and Putin to Trump and Putin to Biden. I mean, Trump talks a lot of shit. That's all he does. Look what he did in policy. Same old, same old. They're imperialists. Look what's happened to the oligarchs that are propped up post 1999 in Russia. They looted the country. Looted it. Think about her, the great activist. She was incredible. Well, she did write some books. The Dirty War. Putin executed her. A journalist. Look what they've done to human rights over there. Look what they've done here. Imperialism. I mean, what is Ukraine supposed to do? So NATO, they formed NATO with the line. Can you imagine without NATO? Which is the U.S., of course, but can you imagine? I've never seen so many more walkers, young, old, in here. So, can you imagine? He would have marched across them like Sherman through Georgia. Sugar wars, molasses wars, textile wars, cocaine cowboys. They don't even call it in Europe. They don't even teach in Europe. They don't call it the Civil War in the United States. They call it the textile war. I mean, these European oligarchs have been fighting over all these lands. You know, they lay out their maps. Putin lays down his old Russian Empire map all the time. He says, we're taking back Alaska. That sell 2 cents an acre is bullshit. You know, that's what he works on World War II prey. Just like they do in the U.S. and they flag. I mean, my uncle, who was on my, he's about decorated World War II as a kid. He was no flag waver. He was anti-war. I mean, I go back to Claude, my other uncle, the incredible fighter pilot, you know, in Japan. I mean, look him up. They were peace activists. Well, they weren't peace, they were just, but you think you call yourself a peace activist and you're selling books all over. Okay, you know, the field, oh God. And by the way, Helen Caldecott is not a anti-nuclear. Kevin Camps is not. Kevin Camps told me to myself, I'm not an anti-nuclear. Beyond Nuclear, they're not anti-nuclear activists. They're not. They're booksellers. They're book writers. They're profiteers. Garney Gundershield, they're not. I hate to tell you this, that they prayed in probably, you know, Chris Busby said it goes, it's a big place to loot. Fukushima is the litmus test. I've said it for years. Fukushima is the litmus test of all great activists. The greatest event in human history. The great earthquake, the meltdowns at Fukushima, Japan. Multiple nuclear meltdowns. It was a litmus test because you knew they were going to come at us. The oligarchs, because this is their crowning jewel. It was, can you hang? Can you stay in this fight? None of them did. They fled like freaking like rats off the Titanic. They all fled, jumped ship, going to hiding because Kevin Blanch was right. It's that simple. You know, are the people that half-truth Fukushima, the people that did it, the so-called peace activists of the last 23 years. Oh my God. So just tell me, you're going to support Putin, an imperialist, when this country was the foundation of anti-imperialism? At some point now, this thing should have been ended a long time ago. But the U.S. won't let it end because the military-industrialized complex has control of the U.S. Hello, that's as obvious as the scars across my face. I mean, hello. These are imperialists that have control of the United States. Billionaires used to be illegal in this country. The old USA, now America. You need to learn to speak. This is nothing more than the old British Empire. Are the cousins fighting again? Come on. You forget your World War I history? The bleeders, the inbreds, they're all related. Remember, you go clear back to John Bonaparte, Trump, and Hillary. You go clear back to Napoleon. You know, Rothschild carrier pigeon at Waterloo. So at Waterloo, you go clear back then. You know, the banking off the war profiteer. Everybody thought that Napoleon had won at Waterloo. Rothschild had carrier pigeons on the battlefield. Stock market crashed, 95% in London? He bought it all up because he knew his carrier pigeons. No. Wellington arrived. Now, who's Wellington? So Wellington's fighting, but they called in their cousins. Where? The English, the British called in their cousins, the empire, from Russia. Remember they're cousins, they're related? You look up the bone pile and the DNA swap. You look it up. Just look it up. Who's the heir to the Romanov royal family? It's Prince Harry. You know, he's living in California. Got a baby drop there now. I mean, there's a reason he's showing. Now, what happened to Diane? I mean, these monarchs still exist. You think it's all just in, oh, please. You know nothing about Iraq and Afghanistan, you know, and the monarchies. So, what can you imagine what he's supposed to do? Just let Putin march across Europe? They have no armies, per se. They really don't. That's written in treaties, Yalta by the Sea. Those are 100-year-old treaties. Now, you go back to the Empire of Japan. So, who, so brutal, so bloody, and Okinawa was so horrible. The movie Hacksaw Ridge, it's a masterpiece, by the way. Make you cry. You know, the U.S. refused to pivot and go back around. So ugly. So, you know, they're firebombing every city. But remember, Russia had how many soldiers ready to invade right then? And the U.S. just couldn't pull it. I mean, they were so dug in. That's why the U.S. dropped the bombs. They were going to claim Japan. By the way, Barack Obama said it perfectly. These treaties were signed long before I became president. They were signed before I was born. So, come on, Japan is the 51st state of the U.S. So, unbelievable. And these same players, it's imperialism. Hello, it's real simple. Imperialism has reared its ugly head. So you call yourself a peace man, you're selling books. Think about this. You're anti-war, and you're justifying Russia's invasion of Crimea and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Okay, say you're right. They really are part of the old Russia. Okay, well, I heard somebody talking, a pretty famous, who I took pictures with at the White House. I was there. Oh, God, don't you get me going on her. If that's a Greek goddess, I'm freaking Adonis. So, booksellers. The Soviet Union, come on. Poland was part of the Soviet Union. I mean, so many of those places that Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. I mean, my God. By the way, the U.S. needs to keep their wall. You know, people are fleeing the United States because they can't afford to retire in Mexico. I mean, it's disgusting what we've done, the exploitation of labor. You know how you fix the labor thing in the U.S.? Real easy. The so-called immigrant nightmare on the Mexican border. You know, that border's been changed how many times? We have E-Verify. But people are willing, you know, they'll pay. They know it's against the law to pay cash. They know it's against the law to use exploited labor on their. They come in, they cook your food at the restaurants, the maids do your beds, they landscape your house, they build your house, you know, and it's the craftsmen been taken out, so you got car salesmen, basically got a group that exploit. Everybody knows it's against the law. It's against the law to pay cash. They're cheating your whole community through taxation. But they do it anyway. He verifies the law. I'll quote of all people, Mitt Romney to Kevin Blanch to my face. He says, well, you know why they never clean up the immigration? This is all about cheap labor. Both parties like it just the way it is. I'm like, oh boy. So, this is imperialism. Red pill, blue pill, they're the same. So what are they supposed to do? You think Putin was going to stop at freaking the Poland line? Are you kidding me? He said it over and over and over. He's taking Alaska back. He lays down the old Russian Empire map. The Russian Empire map went well into Canada, into Oregon, Washington, the Russian River, in California. These European oligarchs have been fighting over this land for 500 years. Remember when the Mormons got here, my family, it was, even before that, Ike Potter got here in 1824. They were after the fur. You know, he was the translator because he spoke all 5 tribes' languages and stole this land from the indigenous people. I mean, disturbing, disgusting, right? This was Mexico. Before that, Spain had claimed it. New Spain. Before that, I mean, the Louisiana Purchase on Balfour, the French, the Russians had claimed it. A lot of it. I mean, they've been fighting, these European oligarchs have been fighting over this ground for 500 years. So what do they, I've been in Ukraine several times. I was with a Ukrainian activist. She was the greatest. She died young of leukemia. I worked with them, man, in, Europe, Eastern Europe. They were, any real activists, I worked so heavily with Anonymous. Look what they did to Anonymous. Edward Snowjob. It goes on 60 Minutes. Think about that. Edward Snowjob on 60 Minutes. I got to the top. I was CIA. Got all the way to the top and found out there was another top. Well, what was the other top? Global oligarchs. Now, he was headed to South America. Now, what did they do to Aaron Swartz? What did they do to Julian Assange? Michael Hastings, Megan Rice. I won't stop there. All those great activists of that era that I was involved with. Look what they done to Kevin Watch. They got control of the internet. Net neutrality. YouTube used to call themselves the great equalizer. I knew it. It was wide open. It was, thus the retention, I used the art, the flipping. My retention was so high. They sent me an email one time that says I was one of the top 10 YouTube sites. Not in the top 10, so one of the top 10 YouTube sites in the world on retention. My retention was so high. That's what it was based on, the search engine. So you Googled everything. There I was. I had it until early 2018. What happened then? Net neutrality. They got rid of it. And then here's Trump. He signed it into law. I thought he was a counterculturist. And so, my Lord. So, they don't stop. So, Biden's going to put net neutrality back. It's 2-2. Has he? How long has he been president? Well over 2 years. He hasn't done anything. He's just like Obama. When you open Obama's memoirs, it just says status quo. Remember, he was the peace activist running on against these wars. Oh. Who knew I was real good at killing people? I'm the first guy reporting. I took a lot of shit for that. Now he's had 2 aides who wrote books saying he exactly said that, and he meant it. And he upped the ante in Afghanistan and Iraq. So, I'm an anti-nuclear energy activist. You don't think I win? You know, my nuclear reactor's been shut down in the last 20 years. Oh, we got one, maybe going on. Oh, okay. We got a zillion. No, you don't. No, you don't. Just the last. They ain't going to stop. So, we shut down. Well, Mother Earth shut them all down in Japan. They're not going back on 50-some. How about Germany? 20, actually. 1920. They've even shut down reactors in France. Belgium shut them down. In South Korea, in Taiwan. You want to talk about great activists? You should see them over there. In China. I remember seeing some videos that they're gone now. They're fighting the nuclear industry in China. And they're chanting Fukushima. I mean, you don't have to be a nuclear physicist, try me, which I am. You don't have to be a nuclear biologist, try me, which I am. You don't have to, I had to go rogue. Look what they did. Aaron Swartz, the JSTOR, MIT Media Lab, Edward Snowjob. Now he's sitting next. I listened to Putin's speech on B-Day, and he was speaking directly right to this faction in the U.S. He says, these globalists, and he's using this terminology. When who's the greatest globalist in the world? Who's the great elite? These elites. Who's the most powerful elite in the world? Putin. You know his net worth is now? Yeah, and people buy it. Here he is, and then where's Edward Snowden? He swears allegiance to him. Look it up. Him and Lindsay Mills. Now, she lost another appeal, Elizabeth Holmes. Oh, yeah? So she's lost the umpteenth appeal. She was convicted of selling $1 billion. Gotta go talk to Henry before I go to Fukushima. That'd be Kissinger, it'll be 100. He was gaga over her. She's still not in prison? No. She filed another appeal. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, it's imperialism. Christian Holmes IV, her father. Did he go to? That's Enron. That's her dad. I mean, bloodlines. Imperialism is through bloodlines. That's how they do it. So, if you're contemporized on YouTube, because they got control, who has total control of social media now? I mean, that's easy. They'll come out and admit it to you. I mean, the NSA, the CIA, the DOE, FBI, these government agencies that are corrupt. The CIA, John Kennedy said they needed to be busted up then, the CIA. They have total control. They have total control. That was the Patriot Act. Read the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act gives the government, the CIA, NSA, these entities, power to control anything they want. Every time you file a Freedom of Information Act, you look at all the retractions. I mean, you go back to the emails from Fukushima. Don't go outside. Take a shower. And then retraction. Got to go talk to Henry before I go for retraction. I mean, they circle the wagons, say Secrets Act, and then they go after. Kevin Blanch was classified. That's an unarguable document. So the activist that wins, Kevin Blanch. Of course they're going to go after me. Of course they are. They know. The other activists that are out writing their books, and I mean, Afghanistan, Iraq, I mean, the last one, I mean, these imperialists. Oh, I'm all for it. At some point, you got to fight the bully. Putin a bully? What he's doing in Ukraine is disturbing and it's disgusting. I've been over there. Okay, say you think it's still yours. Okay, there's other ways to try to do it through diplomacy, right? But he invades and what he's done to that land, what he's done to those people, it's beyond disturbing. Of course, where did he learn it? From here. Look what he did in Iraq. Even Putin says it. What are you talking about, U.S.? We're having a border skirmish, he'll say. You went halfway across the world. Nobody in Iraq laid a finger on you. What about Afghanistan? Went off Afghanistan to kill the Taliban. What? Taliban didn't do that. They were all Saudis. Look it up. The lawsuit that's going on, the sovereign wealth thing. That Obama vetoed that. And do you know that passed? I think nearly unanimously, and they overrode his veto. The Sovereign Wealth Act would allow the 9/11 victims to sue Saudi Arabia royal family. That overturned the Sovereign Wealth Act in 1975. And only a couple of senators voted against it, overturning it, including Hillary. And Obama vetoed it. In Congress, there's only out of 444 Congress, just a couple. From here in Utah, yeah. Why? I mean, watch 60 Minutes. I mean, they're in the club, they think. So, it's unbelievable. So, what are they supposed to do? There's no militaries in Europe post World War I and II, Yalta by the Sea. What are they supposed to do? I mean, you go to Budapest and there where they have the festivals and there's the yellow line. Victor, by the way, woo, it's getting dicey over there. There's a statue of Reagan. There's a statue of Vladimir Lenin, Stalin staring each other down. Stillman, Stalin's real name. Oh boy, he wasn't a communist. I mean, he took those guys out. That's what they do. They play long ball. So, to call yourself a peace activist and you're selling books, I see them, and they're going to promote that all over. Those people are propped up. It's called false resistance. No, a person like Kevin Blanch, well, Aaron Swartz, they were scared to death of him. Julian Assange, they were scared to death of him. That whole movement from that era, Michael Hastings, how great was he? But what happened to him? They'll just take you out, and I've been on death's doorstep a lot of times now, and they've got me so internet squashed They're trying to scrub me off the internet right now. And I mean, they took my suckledamage.com site down. Why? Why would they take that site down? I don't know. I mean, they've taken a lot of stuff down, but they've got me shadow banned. So the net neutrality, they daggered Kevin Blanch harder than it. But the bottom line is this: they showed up too late. My toothpaste is out of the tube. They want to put it back in. They want to put my lightning back in my bottle. I flipped that bottle behind my back and shattered it. So what are they supposed to do in Europe? What are they supposed to do? Just let Putin march across the whole continent? I mean, he's not. I mean, he is the elite. One of the richest men on the face of the earth. One of the most powerful men on the face of the earth. Imperialism rose its ugly head. It's imperialism. What are they supposed to do? So you're going to just get on YouTube. You're going to get on and you're going to justify Putin's actions. Putin's the worst. I mean, look what he's done. Oh, we love Putin. We love Putin, and we're in Russia. Do you like Putin? You know, I've been in Russia. I've talked to so many Russian activists, especially in Vienna, you know, dealing with Finland, dealing with everybody. I've never met one person that liked him. But you're in public, you're in a poll, you know, whatever. Do you like Putin? No, can't stand him. Leave bomb, beam, bomb, bomb. In the gulag or dead. Next time, do you like Putin? Oh, yeah, I love Putin, huh? Oh, my God. He's an imperialist. Oh, you don't think that's happened here? These billionaires? I mean, they're running the world. I mean, I go back to COP in Scotland. This is the environment. The keynote speaker was King Charles, and they introduced him as Your Royal Highness. He wasn't even king then. I mean, it's disturbing. Jeff Bezos is there on his yacht? What? I thought he was an Amazon guy. Going to Los Alamos? Bill Gates was there? What? Bill Gates never met? What? These imperialists? They're back. They're back with your own taxpayer money. What are they supposed to do in Ukraine? So if you're promoting anything of Putin's actions, oh, that's part of the old Russian Empire. Okay, then give up Alaska, give up parts of Oregon, give up parts of Washington, almost to Moscow. I mean, what are you talking about? We're going to go back and have these old tired arguments about these old imperialists, British Empire? We are nothing more in the United States, the old British Empire's military arm. It's disgusting what we do. How come they haven't ended this war? The U.S. could end that war. Because the military-industrial complex, they're making too much money on what they're doing to the people of Ukraine. I've been over there. It's beyond disgusting. It's beyond heartbreaking. I mean, we're going to go back to those days? No, we're not going to. We already did. So, Kevin Blanch, of course they're going to go after me. I'm probably the most accomplished activist in an entire era, generation. I think it's unarguable. Show me one. I'm the activist that wins. It's lonely at the top. Stay tuned.